Mr. Sepulveda. I've got 5 o'clock.
Okay, I'd like to call the regular meeting of Cobre Board of Education into session. It is 5 o'clock. Please let the minutes show that Mr. Guadiana, I don't see him. I see Holguin, I see Gomez, I see Cordova, myself. Okay. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Entertain a motion for approval of agenda items.
Gomez, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
Cordova, second.
Second by Ms. Cordova. Any corrections to the agenda? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin?
Yes.
Mr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Cordova?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. Update on unfinished business. Mr. Mendoza?
We have none on this board meeting, sir.
Okay. Public input pertaining to the agenda. Anything, Victor?
No, sir.
Okay. Move to administration.
Mr. President, members of the board, under Administration A, schedule a special board meeting to discuss appointment of the interim superintendent. This is strictly a board agenda item, so I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Sepulveda.
Okay. At this time, we'll need to probably get together sometime, whether it be virtual or in person. I don't know if we can meet in person yet, but anyway, we need to get together to discuss who or how we're going to go about appointing an interim superintendent. Any suggestions?
I would hope that it would be a in-person meeting. The schools have been required to do in-person classes, and I don't think the threat is nearly as bad. I'm sure all of us have our shots. But if that's the case, I would still like to see it be put on Google Meet so people can see. But if it is that some of the board members don't want to participate in person, they could still have the option of participating via Google Meet, and everybody can deal with their own safety issues the best way they choose. But I think it should be pretty soon. But I think there's something that also needs to be tied to this, and that is, granted, the interim is very urgent. But we don't have a strategic plan. We don't have things that we should be able to talk to a superintendent as to whether they would see these things as their priority. And we should be able to look at a broad agreement on what it is we would like to see happen in the next few years in discussion within ourselves, and then provide a united position to the superintendent. And I think that might give them a better sense of whether they fit or not, or whether they subscribe to what it is we choose to.
Well, I think that is why we need to get together to set something, and also throw some names out there for an interim. but that also has to be in executive session.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, to begin with, throwing names out there, yes.
Okay, I'm not sure about that, and I won't argue it one way or the other, but certainly the process has to be in open session.
Yes,
The
once
process-
we throw some names out there and we maybe narrow it down to two or something, then we can get some folks in there to help us make that decision.
Okay, and can we also discuss the hiring of a permanent one rather than just the interim? If we're going to be together, we should start looking at both of those announcements.
Well, to hire a permanent, we need to advertise that. For hiring an interim, we can just appoint.
Okay, but still, when we meet, that should be, we don't have to add, when we, I don't know, are you talking about a closed session meeting then?
Yes.
Not an open? Okay, yeah, we wouldn't,
So, Mr. President, this is Gabe. If it's
Go ahead, Gabe.
if it's a closed session, then wouldn't we need to meet in person to be able to do that?
I can't understand a word you're saying, Gabe.
No.
he said that if it's a closed session meeting, and I agree, then we have to meet in person. It's that's the reason we haven't had closed session meetings, is because we couldn't ensure that there was nobody else in the room with us.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Any
So-
suggestions?
If it's a closed session, I agree with Gabe, then it's got to be in person.
Okay. And what day would be good for everybody? Because everybody has to be there.
Mr. President, I say June 1st or June 2nd because of the activities going on this week, and then the Memorial Day. So June 1st is a Tuesday, I think, and June 2nd is a Wednesday. I don't know if it'll work out. I was just looking at the calendar at that time.
I think those days would be good. I'm open to those days, but also, shouldn't we put out a flyer for people that are interested to submit their applications so we can have that to review? Or are we only going to go with those people that have contacted us personally?
Well, the people that have contacted personally are interested in the superintendent job, not the interim. In the interim, we can just appoint somebody if they want to take it. That's the thing.
Wouldn't we be better off knowing who it is that's interested in it?
I guess
So
we
if
could.
we-
But if we meet Wednesday, then that's the day that we need to throw some names out there as to who's interested.
So if we start advertising tomorrow, then we might have some applications to review and hopefully get them before Wednesday, and then we'd have a better pool to pick from.
But this would be just for the interim,
Yes.
not the
Yes.
superintendent yet.
Yes, I agree.
Mr. President, I thought you just said a few minutes ago that for the interim, we do not advertise.
We can just appoint somebody and those that are interested. We can put out there that we're looking for an interim, but that's about it. We don't really need, all we need is names and maybe some background on them, but that's it. But we'll appoint somebody.
I think we should do our best to get the best information we have to make a decision. And asking for people to submit a letter of interest and qualifications is not prohibited, and it doesn't break the rules. Granted, we can make an appointment without that, but I think this would show a lot going towards good faith and transparency with the public, rather than us coming into a closed session meeting and saying, okay, we decided on this, without really asking to see who else is interested.
Mr.
Well, that's
President,
why I said, any suggestions?
Mr. President, the thing with that, if you select interim from the outside, that person would probably give up the job that they have at the time. And if they come in and do an internship for us and say it goes 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever, and then they're not selected for the job of superintendent, they have lost their job where they were before, and they lost this one too. That's what I'm saying about usually an interim comes from the inside. They're already employed. And if they don't apply for superintendent, or if they don't get the job for superintendent, they still got their job to go back to. That's just my idea.
Yeah.
And Mr. President, I differ with that 100%. Somebody that applies for an interim knows the risk that they're taking when they apply for an interim. At least at this level, I would think so. And the pretense that, okay, if I get the interim to leave a job, is that they feel that they're quite capable to succeed in getting one, but they take that risk, and they take that risk knowingly. For us to limit only to the people that are inside the system right now, I think would be very ill-fated. Again, it would be drawing from a group that we know, and it'll be, okay, this is going to be the way we make our selections, that we just go to with those that we know, rather than looking at a broader range of candidates to perhaps find somebody better. And there are ex-superintendents here that have worked, some of them in this district. So I think there is sorry, Irene. I think there's a world of options that we have that we'd be ill-advised to make it small to the people that are already here.
Okay, so let's meet Wednesday and set up a plan of where we're gonna go. Wednesday evening at 5 o'clock.
Mr. President, Wednesday evening is not going to work for me. I'm going to a wedding in Phoenix that day, so.
Is it Wednesday?
Yeah, well, it's on Thursday, but if we do it in the evening, then I'll be traveling at.
Can you do it Tuesday?
Tuesday would be better for me. Tuesday evening.
Tuesday, okay with everybody?
I'm good on Tuesday evening.
Okay. Tuesday evening at 5 o'clock, probably there at the boardroom, and then we'll decide where we go from there if we can't social distance. Okay, everybody?
Okay.
Mr. President, so just so I understand, what exactly are we doing on Tuesday? Are we actually picking somebody? Are we gonna go ahead and come up with a process on how we're gonna do this? What's our plan? What are we gonna do?
Well, we can do a plan on how we want to appoint somebody, and maybe at that time also come up with some names also. But in the meantime, maybe we can set up a plan and put out something of interest for somebody to put in a letter of interest for the interim.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be important for us to help facilitate the discussion by knowing what criteria we're using to choose this person. You know, I mean, how we all got to be speaking the same language. So
yes, and this would be only for the interim.
Yes, I understand.
Okay. Tuesday evening at 5 o'clock. Okay, Mr.
Mr.
Mendoza,
President,
Yes.
can you clarify what Tuesday? Is it tomorrow or the next week? For Irene's purpose.
it would have to be next week because Irene has to advertise.
I'm gonna call you up to.
Mr. President, this is
Go ahead.
Melissa Minus.
Yes,
I was wondering, since you're having a special board meeting, would it be okay to also, my application for IDEA grant monies was just released and is due on June 4th. Would that be an appropriate time to discuss the application as well? Would we be able to do that at that meeting?
yes, we could, as long as it's on the agenda that we're gonna discuss that and the discussion of the interim superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll have an open and a closed session. Correct?
Yes. It'll be open for the application and then we'll go to executive session and just do that.
Okay.
Item B, Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, 2122 Title IV application and board action, Joyce Varela.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. You all did get a copy of the Title IV application. $30,173.98. Are there any questions on the application?
Any question? Back to
Okay.
Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, Mr. President, the administration recommends that you approve this Title IV application as presented.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Cordova, so move.
Motion by Ms. Cordova, second.
I'll second, but I would like, could there be a presentation on the purpose of this so that at least the public will get some intent, some idea of what's going on rather than us just passing something that we received and they have no clue what it is? So if Ms. Varela can briefly summarize the activities that she's listed, and granted, we have it and we know it, but I think it would be good public relations to share that with the public that's viewing this meeting.
So under the activities for the application, the first one is under SEL, Social Emotional Learning Professional Development. It's a two-part where we have $15,292.63 between the first two activities. This is a follow-up to the social emotional grant that we had submitted a while back where we're going to be doing a needs assessment. So once the needs assessment is conducted, then these two SEL activities will be follow-ups where they're coming in and working independently with the school on their specific needs. The other one is $100 for AP exams for high school students. The next one is $1,000, I'm sorry, for assistive technology as needed for any at-risk students. Then activity number 5 is Smart Music. It's a software program for Cobre High School, well, it's now middle school and Cobre High School band students. Activity 6 is the purchase of the Accelerated Reader program for students in K through 8 as they are the students who have been using the program.
Thank you, Joyce.
Jet 7 and 8, but no, I guess that's just indirect costs.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Thank you, Joyce.
Yes.
Okay, you second the motion, Mr. Juliana?
Yes.
Okay, motion was seconded by Mr. Juliana. Any other questions? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Juliana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Brings us to item 5. Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, this is a review and approval of the district's 21-22 budget. And I'd like for Ms. Holguin to please present.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Mr. President, members of the board, what I will be presenting will be what was approved for the amount that was approved on SCG from the PED. I would like to present and just reiterate what was on the 910B5 as far as what the PED has calculated as our current SCG. We were notified on May 16th that they had made another adjustment. So the adjustment to that was on our hold harmless amount. And it was adjusted by $109,904 down. So now our base budget that we're looking at for expenditures is $12,699,877. And then including extended learning time and K5, which was originally included in our budget, that is separate. So 1.193 is part of those extended learning programs. So what we've done is go ahead and budget the 12,699,877, which is the amount that totals at the bottom of the sheet that was included in your board packet. Let me go back to the board packet amount. I just wanted to make sure that it was understood that $12,699,000 is what we're doing our base SCG budget on. To the worksheet that we included in the packet, it was broken down as 2 worksheets. The first one begins with teachers' salaries grades 1 through 12 under job class 1411. And it culminates with the utilities and miscellaneous costs from the second worksheet included in on this line here. Can everybody see what I'm presenting, just to make sure I'm not going through it without anybody?
We could see it a minute ago, Terry, but not anymore.
Not anymore? Okay, just a second. I think it still took the other worksheet. So hold on just a second. Okay, now we can see it.
Okay.
Okay, so the total at the bottom is the 12,699,877. So from the second worksheet that was in your packet, the utilities and miscellaneous came to 2.726996, and that includes everything on the worksheet that starts with substitutes and it ends in repair of buildings, facilities, and maintenance.
So that's where the 2.726996 comes from. So the worksheets have the what's currently budgeted and includes what we are spending and encumbering so far up to this point, and we only have like a month left, so it's pretty close to the expenditures. We're not encumbering as much anymore unless there's something that really needs to be purchased or encumbered. And then the proposed FY 21-22, and then the variance. So if you see a line where the notes say included in the salary lines, that would be a total that would be included on the other spreadsheet. So it's pretty much broken down as employee costs and then utilities and miscellaneous costs. Did everybody get a chance to review, or do I need to go specifically to any particular line?
Okay with it there.
Pardon?
There was an outstanding issue in the committee meetings regarding pay for staff that we never got anywhere close to resolving. Critical positions such as the Director of Finance, the Vice Principal of Cobre, Special Education Coordinator, as well as the 2 assistants that have been moved into the administrative role. That payment, for instance, the finance position, the predecessor was making at its highest after, I guess, around 30 years of experience. He was making $82,000. The current Director of Finance is making $99,000, soon to be $100,000 a year, with just a few years experience. The superintendent does have the right to set the salaries, but they have to be within the framework of what the position is, what it is, as we've been stated, as a high and a low range. And there's the range of experience necessary to make the steps to the current rate of pay. None of this information was provided in terms of my request to see what justified the salaries, nor the range of any of these positions. And part of that is largely because we've never really looked at this. And 2 is that we don't have an HR director. So there's nobody to sign off on these salaries. Usually the budget process includes some oversight with regulations, whether it's salary or whether it's whatever the case is. And we didn't have an HR director participating in this process to review any of the salaries. They did say there was a comparison to Deming, which is, I don't know how many times bigger than we are, and I don't see how that could be even a relevant comparison. But along those lines, I will introduce in an alternative motion to say that we go back and we ensure that people are being paid what their appropriate level should be. And the money of that later on, we can decide what to do. But this budget with those expenditures that exceed the authority and exceed the base range and experience of the people should not be paid for under our budget. And that's our responsibility to make sure that our budget is for things that have been authorized. And that's one comment that I have on this so far.
Okay.
But the other part is one of the things that I had hoped that we would do as a budget committee is present to the school, to not only to the board, but to the students and to the parents, that we took in consideration the needs in the classroom. We did not. And that's not to say that it wasn't done. Certainly there were meetings, there was discussions, but it wasn't brought to the, it was suggested, and we had a preliminary discussion when I ran the numbers of areas that where we needed improvement, which included everything. The only two schools that did relatively well, one obviously was San Lorenzo doing very well, and Snell Middle School did well in science. All the rest of the schools had very difficult, very sad percentages of proficiency, way down into like 7% proficiency in science in some schools. So those weren't factors that were taken into consideration in this budget. We didn't look to see where we needed to add additional staff, maybe a teacher's aide. None of that went into place. We don't have a math interventionalist, and all our schools are doing not so well in math. So none of this budget was really prepared in our meetings to present to the board or to the public as to what our decisions were made to address the current needs. And basically, that undermines the purpose of the board. I mean, undermines the purpose of the committee. The committee was pretty much run by the ad hocs, not by the committee itself. Mr. Sepulveda, you were chairman of the committee, and there wasn't really a direction that said, okay, this is what we need to focus on. And not to mention, there really wasn't a lot to focus on because we don't have a strategic plan. So this exercise in a finance committee was an exercise in futility. We have people that are like Terry's salary is $100,000. There's Maureen's salary that will be also $100,000 for a bite.
I don't think we need to mention people's names at this point. This is a budget that was made up here, and all those salaries, other than a few, but most of the salaries that you mentioned a while ago are comparable to schools our size, and that's the way it went. Deming being probably the highest, where it'd be the high, and then you look at others that are at the low end. So this salary wages that you're talking about are comparable to schools our size.
That was never presented. And number two, that data was not presented. What you're telling us is just word of mouth. There's nothing statistically given to us. I requested those comparisons. I never received them. And we should have position descriptions that state the salary. They do. Well, those weren't presented either.
But position descriptions sometimes, Mr. Guadiana, are personal, and there's stuff that you cannot look at and we cannot look at.
Excuse me? Yes, we can.
No, you can't.
Absolutely, we
Let's
can.
move on, because this is an argument that we can do later. But right now, we're looking at the budget.
This is budget.
It is, yes, it is, but not in the extent that you're taking it.
The extent I'm taking is there's positions that are being overpaid. And if you're saying you want to dismiss this as positions that are being paid the way appropriately, then I would challenge that. I would challenge that to say they need to provide, there should be, well, let me put it this way. If we go with an amendment that says we look into the appropriateness of that payment, you shouldn't have anything to be concerned about because it should be okay. Now, wanting to kill that before even looking at it is pretty suspect.
Yeah.
You didn't attend more than half of the meetings of this. So you don't know what was requested. You don't know what was given. And you stand to intervene in such a way to say, oh, yes, it was okay, when they had the opportunity to provide that information.
I may have not attended, but I have met with Terry and gone over this thing, which some of these things you don't even know how much I've done. You haven't even seen my phone record to tell me how many times I've called over there to get information.
So you have been doing stuff as a single person, not as a board member.
No, not as a board member. I've been doing it as a board member. After those committee meetings, I called Terry to find out what went on. And you can't tell me I can't do that.
You can't do that. You can.
Yes, I can.
You can.
I can ask Terry what went on at the finance committee meeting.
Yes,
And I
you
have
can.
not attended. And the reason I have not attended is because I have been going to the doctor to check my eyes. Can you tell me why you weren't here the other day until almost at the end of the meeting?
Yes, my aunt fell and she, but either way, you're, as a.
We need to move on. This is something that I don't need to argue with right now. Let's move on. Mr. Mendoza.
Mr. President, members of the board, the administration recommends that you approve the budget as presented by Terry.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion with an amendment that we take a look at those salaries just mentioned and ensure that they fit the criteria for the rate of pay they're getting received, and make any corresponding adjustment according with our findings.
You heard the motion. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President, I think the motion was to accept the budget and that the amended or whatever's added on should be a different motion.
Absolutely not. An amendment can happen at our will.
Maybe at the board's will, not at one person's will.
Well, it takes a majority to make an amendment. It's called voting. That's when you decide whether the amendment is approved or not. You can't restrict it until there's a majority that support it.
Those corrections that you said is once the budget gets back approved from the state.
Correct.
Okay. Do you hear a second?
This is Gabe. I'll second it.
Thank you, Gabe.
Vote for it.
Mr. Holguin, second. Any other questions or comments? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin.
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana.
Yes.
Mr. Gomez.
Nay.
Mr. Cordova.
I've got a question. Are we voting on approval of the budget or are we voting on the amendment?
We're voting on the approval of the budget with the corrections being made when it gets back from the state.
My vote is no.
Okay. My vote is no with the amendments, for the amendments. Motion does not carry. Now, do I hear a motion to approve the budget as presented to send to the state?
Gomez, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
Cordova, second.
Mr. Cordova, second. Any other comments? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin.
No.
Mr. Guadiana.
No.
Mr. Gomez.
Yes.
Mr. Cordova.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries to send the budget as presented to the state. Moves us to item 6. Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, just a reminder that the next board meeting is scheduled for the 14th. But Mr. Sepulveda, I also understand that you shared with me that you have a doctor's eye appointment in Tucson on that day. And if the board so wishes, we could schedule around that visit so that you can participate, but that's got to be a board decision, okay? So,
Okay.
that's
Yes, I've got a doctor's appointment on the 7th and the 14th. So I don't know what day you want to move the budget, that meeting to, or do you want to go ahead and have it with Mr. Cordova presiding?
I'd say, Mr. President, I'd say move it so that we all can participate.
Okay.
Recommendation.
Other than those 2 days, I'm okay.
Mr. President, members of the board, the administration recommends the next day, Tuesday the 15th. I don't know how that would go with everybody.
It's okay with me, Cordova.
It's okay with me.
Okay.
Gomez.
Mr. Holguin?
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay. So we'll move it to the 15th.
Okay, that concludes.
Okay. This time, entertain anything from the public. Do we have anybody, Victor?
No, sir. George Escala just raised his hand. He's in the meeting. I did get an email yesterday that I did forward to everybody. I'm not sure if anyone responded to it. It was from Billy Trujillo. He was emailing to ask if there's a plan to fix the electricity in the welding class. He believes this is the answer for me. Maybe you can answer. I'll finish reading and then you can answer. There is power, but not any outlets for the welders. I would hope that our kids take a class, especially one that will give them hands-on knowledge and experience, that they are not cheated, but things like not having the ability to do things needed to fully participate in any class. There was also weight training classes that were not allowed to use the weight room, even though it was accessible to other people. So I just directed him saying, I forwarded the email to district administrators, board members, principal, and athletic director.
Good evening. I just wanted to let you know I did email him back and we met, or we didn't meet, but we corresponded and he understands everything and everything's good to go in the ad shop now.
Okay, cool. And then you have Mrs. Sepulveda, you have Georgia Scott.
Okay. Mr. Scott.
Well, Mr. Board President, members of the board, again, George Esqueda here. Want to take this time just to make a couple of public comments as well as ask a few questions. First, want to start off by I know I've been a thorn in Mr. Mendoza's side since the beginning of the year with various emails being sent to him, but I do want to congratulate him on his pending retirement and wish him the best of luck in the next chapter of his life. So again, congratulations and wish you the best, Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. Scala. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So second item of public input has to deal with the graduation that occurred this past Friday. Just want to, as a parent of a 2021 graduate, want to take this time to thank the staff, the class sponsors, the custodians, those that set up for the ceremony, the IT department, which made it possible for those that weren't able to attend to view the ceremony live, the administration, for those that participated. And again, everybody did a good job based on the fact that weather conditions weren't the best, and they adapted in a way that, again, made it special for those that graduated on Friday. So again, just want to, as a parent, want to thank all those that made the ceremony happen, not only planning it, but carrying out the ceremony. Again, just want to give a big shout out to those that made it happen. So that's my second comment, I guess, in regards to the upcoming replacement or the new superintendent. I know at your last week's board meeting, there were a couple of options thrown out there in regards to the process or the options available of evaluating and hiring of a superintendent. And just wondering if Mr. Sepulveda, if you're in a position at this point in time to elaborate on those that are wanting to or willing to, from the public, volunteer as part of that process. Can you provide some information for those that are listening in on how to go about it? Is there a form that needs to be completed? Who makes the decision as to who can or who will serve on on those committees? Is that something that you can elaborate now so that the public is aware of what's going to be happening?
I'll tell you, Mr. Esqueda, right now, there will be committees to look at the superintendent, the coming in superintendent. There will be they will be able to put their names down that they want to be on committees. We don't expect to have a very large committee, because then it gets to a lot of detailed things that certain people want and that. But there will be members of the community. There will be teachers. There will be administrators. All of those will be involved in the selection of the committee. Which way we go at this point, I do not know. If we will be going with a company for like the one that gave the presentation at the board meeting a couple of meetings ago, that if we'll be going with one of them, will we be doing it ourselves, or what direction are we going to go? We haven't met to decide that yet, but there will be people involved.
So no, and I appreciate that. And yes, I was listening in on last week's board meeting in which the three options were presented. Again, I just want to make sure that again, those that are willing to or wanting to volunteer for such a committee are provided the opportunity to do so. So I would assume then that at your meeting next Tuesday, June 1st, that you would be discussing the size of the committee and the makeup of the committee. Is that something that you guys will be discussing, or are you guys just going to be discussing the interim superintendent position?
At this point, I think it's just the interim, and maybe talk a little bit about what direction are we going to go in the superintendent search.
Okay, so when that decision has been made in regards to which process or which option you as a board are going to take, will some kind of notification be presented to the public for those that would or wanting to volunteer? Is there something that's going to be put out there as a public announcement via the newspaper or on your website or something like that?
Yes, I'm sure it will. It might be on both.
And just as a comment, your guys' new and I know Mr. Arambura is doing a good job, but I know there's still some kinks that need to be worked out with the new layout of the website. So I just wanted to point that out there. But again, no, thank you for addressing my questions in regards to those for volunteers and the committee. And again, will be for those of us that are interested in volunteering and serving on such a committee, we'll be on the lookout for that information. So again, thank you for that. I do have some other questions or comments and they pertain to some outstanding agenda items that have been discussed in the past, but have seemed to have slipped off the radar. One of them being the Auxiliary Gymnasium. I know that discussion was had a couple of months ago, in which agenda items had that the architect was going to be making presentations to the board, but yet there has not been any presentations to the best of my knowledge, and was wondering if either you or another member of the administration could provide some kind of project status in regards to where do you stand? I mean, is the design still ongoing? Is there a schedule for receiving bids, things of that nature? Because again, seems to have slipped off the radar.
Okay, that I think is still ongoing. Mr. Mendoza, could you comment on that?
Well, let Terry, can you comment on this?
Yes. Everybody hear me? So we're still in the design phase. They've already contacted the surveyor and also the let me think. George, what was the other piece of it that was the architect was working on, and then he's going to give us an update after that.
Yeah, on the drilling and seeing how the dirt samples come out and how the soil samples come out, that has already gone out. So we are waiting on that, and that's one of the things that the architect was waiting on.
Right.
Well, I appreciate the response, but somebody who has a little bit of experience in dealing with projects of this nature, it would appear to me that the geotechnical investigations, as well as the topographic surveying, as well as the boundary surveying, would have occurred up front prior to moving into any kind of design, unless those designs that have been done to date are only conceptual in state. But again, I would have thought that those items that were just mentioned would have been performed at the upfront or the beginning of the project, not at this point in time. If there is design plans.
Mr. Esqueda, the reason for the soil samples is because we had not made a decision as to where the auxiliary gym was gonna go. At one point, we had said it was gonna be up there at where the tennis courts were, and there was another one where it was gonna be right behind the school, and now we're talking about over by the between the softball field and the football field. So that was one of the reasons why the soil sampling and all of that had not been done.
Oh, okay. No, I appreciate that. But again, yeah, like I said, even at that point in time, those I would have thought that information should already be readily available. But okay, well, again, thank you for the update on the gymnasium. But again, still haven't addressed the projected timeline in regards to when is the design going to be completed and when would it be going out to bid. I'm assuming that the architect that's under contract has a certain amount of days to get the design completed. Can anybody elaborate on that?
Mr. Sepulveda, is there a time limit for public input?
No, ma'am. There's
not at this point.
Not
on this public input, no, Irene.
Which is going to lead me to my next item under my discussion. But again, just wondering if there's any additional information that can be shared with the public in regards to the Auxiliary Gymnasium.
I'm sure there can. George, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, one of the things we're waiting on also is the price of material has been changing drastically, and it's been happening since the very beginning of the pandemic, and so that's one of the things that the architect was struggling with, is trying to get some of the contractors that he's looking at for the metal building, because the price of metal continues to increase. So that's one of the things that he's wrestling with right now, trying to make sure he can lock down those prices, because one of the things is with they continue to grow, it just changes the price of the building.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Again, I've certainly experienced that as well. Not only the escalation in construction costs, but also the delay in delivery of materials as well. So, okay, but again, at this point in time, there is no projected date for a design completion.
No, at this time, no.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, kind of going to my next item, which is public input. I know a couple of months ago, it was discussed, public input, and I believe, Mr. Sepulveda, you were going to either visit or had visited with an attorney, and we're going to get back to the board as well as the public in regards to the findings, whether the board was going to cut it back from 2 agenda items to 1 agenda item, as well as imposing a time restriction. So, at this point in time, since there is nothing identified on the agenda, those that do wish to speak under public input should be afforded the amount of time that's needed, not only to comment, but to ask their questions. So again, just wondering if anything has happened in regards to that agenda item that was, again, a couple of months ago. Has there been any additional movement on that?
At this point, under the executive board for the New Mexico School Boards Association and the board of directors, which Mr. Cordova and myself are members of the board of directors, I have visited with Mr. Gillian, and the majority of school boards across the state only have 1 public input, and they do limit people to 3 minutes. We down here have 2 public inputs, and really we haven't set an actual time limit. But that is what the majority of the school boards across the state are doing. And under the direction of the lawyer, they have said that there should only be one public input on them and limit to 3 minutes. But we haven't taken any action on that yet.
So to go along that, in regards to the public input, are the policies that are on the website then current, or because in the policies for the board, it does clearly identify that there will be 2 public input agenda items. So are you guys looking to update the policies, or have they been
at this point, we are working with the policy service that services I can't remember how many school districts across the state. We are working with them and updating all our policies. And at this point, I'm not sure exactly where he's at, because I know we were supposed to meet with him right before the pandemic started, and we haven't met with him yet. But the policy service for the state of New Mexico is working on our policies at this point.
Mr. President.
Yes.
To answer his question, the attorneys and the School Board Association and the executive boards of the School Board Association don't drive what it is we do. We have a policy and we're bound to keep it, and there is no restriction on the amount of time that you speak. So I apologize for that interruption that you got. But also the premise that, other school districts don't do that. I find it inspiring that Deming has a public input section on every agenda item. So it can go both directions. And I think it's a question of whether the board wants to have transparency and public input, or whether it chooses to restrict it. Attorneys always give advice, I should say, almost universally give advice that minimizes the exposure of a board. And to that end, the less input you have, the less exposure you have. And it's really a question of whether the board wants to limit its exposures or if it wants to really embrace transparency and public input.
Yeah, I did not say we were taking public input out. I just said that the majority of the things in the state have only one public input, where we have two, and we have not taken any action on it, so we still have two.
Yeah, and all I was referring to was the recommendations you've been given by attorneys and by other districts. We have not stated anything, and all policy reviews have to be done in public, and there has to be 2 readings of any proposed changes.
Yes, but there have not been no changes yet.
No, I know.
The policy service is working on it at this point.
Okay,
I understand.
And again, my question was,
yeah,
no, and again, my question was just to see if there's been any movement or any action on it, and it appears that then that based on the responses provided by yourself as well as Mr. Wudiana, that there has been some action, and again, that you guys are still taking it under advisement and looking into it. So again, just a question, again, because it was on an agenda item, I believe, back in March. So again, I'm almost wrapping it up here. So in regards to now that the majority of the state is turquoise, and the students returned back to in-class learning, has there been discussion within the board to begin having your guys' meetings in person? If they are to be held in person, I would like to strongly recommend that you also continue to stream them, as well as providing the public an opportunity to comment, to view and comment during the meeting for those that cannot attend. Because again, I think now that these board meetings have been streamed live, I know there's a lot of people in the public that are now paying more attention, viewing these meetings. And again, speaking for myself personally, who would like to try to get involved, and rather than just again being a thorn in your side, seeing what members of the public can bring to the table from a different point of view. So again, has there been any discussion in regards to in-person board meetings again?
Not at this point.
Do you guys has there been any discussions, or do you intend to have any discussions in the near future about it?
Yeah, we probably will, but at this point, we haven't had any discussion yet.
Okay. All right. Well, again, those are my comments, my questions, and Mr. Board President, members of the Cobre Consolidated School District Board of Education, again, just want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk to you guys during your meeting. And again, hope to hear back from you guys in regards to public being part of the committee for the selection of a new superintendent, and then looking out for the additional information on the auxiliary gym, public input, and board meetings will begin to be held in person as well. So again, with that, I want to thank you, and myself also for any questions that any of you guys may have of me.
Thanks for your comments.
Thank you for your comments, and we look forward to working with you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Mr. Mendoza. Any other comments out there, Victor?
No, sir, not at the moment. Nothing else.
Okay. Okay, moves us to items for next agenda.
I have none at this time, Mr. President.
I brought this up a number of times, and I think in our recruitment for our search for a replacement superintendent, we should do a board evaluation. And that way we can look at what we're doing right, look at what we're doing wrong, and that should be in conjunction with the strategic plan. So I would like to see both of those things on the agenda. It is a policy that we do these things.
Okay. For the, thank you for your comment. For the special election, Irene, there'll be 2 items for the discussion of the interim superintendent and Melissa's the application for that. Forget what it was, but the application for that. Let's put the application first, and then we'll put the discussion after that, because we'll have to go to executive session after that. Okay, thank you. Any other thing?
No, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
So move, Cordova.
Motion by Mr. Cordova. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, do the middle one now.